Barbarians are the peak of human intellect and power, and I'm glad to see that this mod creator has realized that. So we'll start off in a dark mystical forest with 5 barbarians that will make their own settlement. Bryn Cater is a 24-year-old who has high medical and good melee skills. Bruno is a fast learner and a good planter, who's also good at fighting melee. Bilson is a good shooter and a good cook, and Scorpion specializes in research. Gray is our constructor and miner. So to start off we had to deforest a lot of the local area. The huge trees were taking up all our space. But in the process of cutting down a big tree, I awakened something called a Shrat, a huge kind of tree monster that ended up attacking all my people. Everyone except Bilson had a melee weapon, so I figured if I surrounded it, it would be easy to take out. But it was doing a lot of damage to my people and it took a lot of hits. Scorpion was the first to go down, and he desperately tried to crawl away to safety while the others kept on fighting. But despite his injuries, he got back up to fight the Shrat. But Bruno dealt a killing blow. Although it seemed like the Shrat was still alive, it was not something that I was worried about. I just had to make sure everyone gets healed up, and then I could continue my basic buildings. But all of a sudden the Shrat exploded into 2 smaller pieces. With only Bilson and Scorpion nearby, I had to quickly bring over the other people to help them out. It was now up to my last 3 people to try and get rid of this imminent threat. But after we knocked down the first one, it didn't take long for the second one to also go down. The next couple of days we focused on building our basic bedrooms and making a small workshop. We had a research pod which we used to get more medieval technology. But then a raider showed up. It was only one of them with a melee weapon, and I was eager to test out my people on him. I figured that 2 melee fighters with ranged support should be enough to make quick work of this guy. Gray, being nimble, was able to dodge the first attack, and after that the raider just got harassed. His leg got cut off, and then he just immediately passed away. All of a sudden a monolith fell from the sky, and Scorpion went to investigate it. But the investigation led to a side stealer being spotted, an invisible creature that was now gonna try to attack our colonists. But he came in the wrong place because he was surrounded by 5 melee fighters and lost his leg and his shoulder almost immediately. But with no means of capturing it, we decided to just let it die. A couple days later, a mystical creature named a Griffin wandered in, and I figured there's no better way to prove ourselves as berserkers than to kill this Griffin ourselves. So we surrounded it and started getting to work. It was evident that it would fight back, and I was not too worried about it winning. It didn't seem much tougher than the Shrat, but then again, this thing did have sharp claws compared to the blunt damage. But with all our berserkers together, it stood no chance, and we were able to take it out, and then later eat it. In the first days of winter we had made a lot of progress, but then 4 wasters showed up to raid us. This was a lot bigger than the 1-man raid we've had before, so we had to rally everyone into the cold and try to face them head on. It was at this point I also realized I would need some more defenses. But we engaged the first raider, who only had toxic grenades. The other 2 had melee weapons, and the last one had a gun that he put to good use on Bruno. We were able to slowly take out each one of them, but we did suffer a lot of injuries. These guys knew how to fight, and we had to take care of all of them. Because believe it or not, our people also liked human meat, so we wanted as much as we could. Then all of a sudden, a devourer wandered in. These creatures could swallow a human whole, and would digest them while being attacked. I had to make sure I grouped everyone together before I engaged with this horrible creature. and I also had a holding area ready in case I was able to capture it. So we engaged it and it had not yet swallowed anyone, when all of a sudden it leaped and it got Gray, our constructor. Now we were racing against time. We had 20 seconds to kill this creature before Gray was dead, and it was not looking great. He was only barely injured, and despite getting stabbed from 3 angles and getting axes thrown at him, we only had 10 seconds left, and he did not seem to go down. It seemed like he had some kind of armor stopping most of our attacks, but with 1 second left, we were finally able to free Gray, who only had minor injuries, and we were able to capture the Devourer in our simple holding cell, despite not having the technology to make anything better. A while later in the fall, an excavator called Donners crashed in a transport pod. Seeing as she had decent skills, I tried to rescue her and recruit her to our cause. A while later, another mystical animal wandered in, something that resembled a mix between a bear and a deer. Now I figured that his horns would sell for quite a bit, but then again, killing this thing was mostly for the honor, so I gathered up everyone and prepared for another epic battle. So we threw an axe inside of it, and of course it immediately went to revenge. So I surrounded it just like I did to the griffin, and then it was just a matter of whittling it down. But this one could take a lot more hits, because it was a lot bigger too. But eventually we were able to overwhelm it with just the sheer amount of numbers. A couple days later, after having recruited Donners and outfitted her, the Devourer attempted to escape. Now I had left it a little injured from the previous fight, because I knew this was coming. We were about to have the same situation as we did before, so I had to quickly rally up everyone and prepare for another attack. So we rushed in and tried to take it out. Once again it leaped, and this time it grabbed Scorpion. We're with the same predicament as last time, but this time it was a lot more injured and we had an extra soldier, so it did not take long for Scorpion to be released by this horrible creature. A while later, some royals told us about a camp owned by rival barbarians, 4 of them to be exact, so I planned to sally out and get rid of their camp. After a long journey, all of us arrived except Donners, who I left behind to guard the camp. They did not seem as tough as we did, so I figured that I could face them head on without too much trouble. After Bilson threw an axe, we decided to all go in. I left one guy behind in case someone sneaked up on her, and the others went straight for the kill. Gray was fighting some guy on his own, and managed to take him down pretty quickly, while Scorpion and Bruno focused on another man. Now, I was right in my choice of leaving someone behind, because 2 guys tried sneaking around, and both of them were throwing axes. One guy was almost immediately taken out by Brinkara, and the last guy tried running away, which we let him. After this fight, we didn't see much action for many weeks, so we decided to sally out and attack a nearby medieval fortress. We had brought materials to make a trebuchet and a ballista, so we would lay siege to them and then hope to be able to kill the counterattack. So, we had positioned ourselves near the river, because there would only be one way that I thought they would cross from, which is a bridge close by to me. I had set up a trebuchet and 2 ballistas. The idea would be that I hit their base with a trebuchet, maybe hit someone, and then they'd sally out and attack us. They would be easy targets for the ballista, and anyone who's left uninjured would probably be stabbed or clubbed to death by my other people. Now we didn't end up hitting anyone with the trebuchet, but they did attack. Only, they took a strange route that I did not expect them to take. I figured they would come straight from below me, but instead they went straight up. I realized that they were trying to loop around and use my wall against me, because I could not fire behind me. So I quickly realized that I had to get Gray to deconstruct all of it. Now when it was finally all deconstructed, they sent out a child, maybe as a scout or maybe as a human sacrifice. So I mounted the ballista and he immediately got shredded into pieces and died. But then the people finally showed up. They got close enough and we immediately started shooting them. The only problem with these ballistas is that they have to reload every 15 shots. Other than that, they were great at doing damage. The frontal charge was immediately getting slowed down by all of our shooting, and it was looking good. But they started getting a little closer, and we had to keep reloading. And they started shooting at us too. So I had to get my melee fighters in position to get ready to defend the ballistas while they reloaded. They kept putting down good shots down range, and the enemy was diminishing in number. But all of a sudden, Grey passed away in battle. Our constructor had died fighting another soldier, and now it was up to the others to finish his work. Now Scorpion was also getting ambushed, and no one was able to shoot the ballistas anymore. I tried to have our new recruit use it, but it was really hard to do it at such close ranges. But I knew that this would be the only way that we could still win. The knights they had were way stronger than our barbarians, and I did not account for this. I figured that we would be able to best them in melee combat, but it did not seem like this was possible. Their knights could even take our ballista shots, and everyone was knocked down except Honors, who I had to run in the hope that I would somehow come up with a plan to keep her alive and somehow win this battle. Now the one advantage that I had is that all these knights were a lot slower than the Honors, who I had to run away. I thought maybe there would be something in the base that she could use, but unfortunately no. I realized that the one thing that could still save her are the throwing axes that Bilson left behind. If she was able to outrun everyone and slowly pick them off with throwing axes, there could still be hope. It finally arrived, but was being closely followed by a knight. While trying to pick up the axes, she was able to block an attack, and when I thought it was all over, she kept going without getting injured. When she finally grabbed the axes, I brought her to a good distance so she could finally get one off. But instead of shooting at the knight in front of her, she shot at one right behind him, and this ended up being her downfall. She got struck in the foot and was able to limp away. But the knight huntsman, who had been chasing her this entire time, was catching up, and he somehow blocked the throwing axe, and this would be the end for Donners and the barbarian faction as a whole, because she got cornered and stabbed to death right there.